Hey, what's up? Welcome to Degen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts like the charts behind me, which are of cannabis stocks and ETFs, as I am recording this on Saturday, April 20th. So happy 420. And yeah, I just wanted to go over these tickers after the close on Friday, April 19th. And to start, I'm going to be going over a couple ETFs, with the first one being ticker symbol MSOS. This is a non-leveraged cannabis stock ETF, which closed on Friday at a price of $8.76, being down 5.3% on the day. And so looking at the chart, I haven't added any levels to this since the last video that I did last Saturday. And so one thing that does stand out to me about this that is a little bit concerning is that, maybe we have a head and shoulders pattern here. However, the right shoulder over here does, as you might notice, hit a higher high. So I do believe that does negate any head and shoulders pattern here. So I do think that is good, but generally the stock price, the ETF price is looking a little weak, but it has respected this golden pocket here. So the range from the 618 to the 65% retracement of this Fibonacci here, going from the low hit on March 12th up to the high hit on April 4th. And so from that, we have had multiple wicks testing both of those levels, really actually just one getting below the 65% retracement. And so that was hit on April 16th, that we did get this big green candle followed by a retracement. So, I do think it is a little bit concerning that these gains could not be held, but I do think it is reassuring that we have not seen any confirming breaks below these levels, just these wicks down. So I would look for closes below either the 618 at a price of $8.70 or the 65% level at a price of $8.58. But perhaps most importantly, I would look for a close below the low hit on April 16th, and that was at a price of $8.55. So getting a close below that level could be the beginning of a break of these two levels. However, that would not be confirmation. Confirmation would be a secondary close below that new low. So do look for that. But another thing that does stand out, I do believe I pointed this out before, is this gap here at a price of $7.87. That may very well be filled, perhaps with a wick coming below the 786 at a price of $8.08. Or perhaps, maybe we get a close at $8 a share. I could see that happening. But let's see, if we do look at some of these peaks in the past, they actually are lower than the gap fill. So that might be a little bit concerning. Maybe we do find support below that gap at around a price of $7.67. But it is quite possible that this peak here hit at the beginning of the year could be acting as support, and that is right at $8 a share. So do look for that one. All right, but now before continuing on to the stocks, I did want to go over ticker symbol MSOX, which is 2x leveraged cannabis ETF. And so here I do have a few more lines drawn on this one. And here there's one thing that you might notice, and that is this purple uptrend. As with this ETF, it does look like we may be forming a head and shoulders pattern because the right shoulder hit a lower high. So the high on the chart here that was hit on February 2nd was at a price of $7.73, whereas the right shoulder high was at a price of $7.48. So if we do start to go lower, getting towards filling this gap at a price of $4.05, that could be testing the neckline. But, I would say that I would put less weight on the MSOX and more on the MSOS because this one is leveraged, whereas MSOS is not. I think that's a better reflection of what will be going on in the cannabis market. But anyways, looking at the chart here in the Fibonacci retracement, we have closed below here, below the 618 and the 65% retracement. So closing below that golden pocket there, which ranges from a price of $4.90 up to $5.03, having a close on Friday at a price of $4.64, being down almost 10% on the day. But, I had mentioned confirmation regarding MSOS. Just like with MSOS, it does not look like we have had confirmation below these levels, as we have seen these pretty big wicks to the downside, these tails from these 3 days. There were buyers stepping in below the price of about $4.70. We got wicks below that level, but closes above. So that does suggest to me that buyers are stepping in and getting confirmation. A confirmation of a close below both of these levels would be closing below the low hit on April 16th, and that was at a price of $4.41.5. So if we do see a close below that level on Monday or Tuesday of next week, I do think that this could be going lower, potentially to fill this gap right around $4 a share. But, a confirmation below this level could also be respecting the 786. That is at a price of $4.36.7. So do keep an eye on that level. But, we could always get a fake out break below and then a reclaim. So always look for 2 closes below any key levels, 2 closes below the previous day's low. That would be confirmation of a continuation. But, with this, I do think this one doesn't look as good as MSOS. But like I said, I'd put more weight on that MSOS chart. And then just looking at these prior peaks here, it does look like this peak here is corresponding with the current price. So it might actually be finding support at its current level, as we have seen these wicks down, but then reclaim of the golden pocket. So hopefully we start to see closes above $5 a share in the coming week, potentially getting above, these highs here. That's at a price of right around $4.86. Really getting above the 65% retracement at $4.90.6. I do think that would be good. So something to keep in mind there, but there could still be some dip buying opportunities with this one, as, the MSOS may not go down all the way to fill this gap. It is quite possible because of the leverage that MSOX might be filling this gap, maybe connecting with this neckline, but I do think that would be a fake bearish sign because we don't see that in the MSOS, with the right shoulder being higher than the head, which does negate that pattern. But anyways, going on to some of the tickers, I wanted to start first with TLRY, ticker symbol TLRY. This is the largest market cap of the 3 stocks that I'll be going over, currently having a market cap of $1.34 billion, closing on Friday at a price of $1.73, being up about 0.5% on the day, really not being that incredible of a day. But here, looking at the chart, this is one that has received quite the beating, really being around earnings. We did see this gap down and this price breaking below the golden pocket as well as the 786, but it is holding a pretty key level. From last week's video, I do believe I had $1.70 drawn up here, and it does look like we're holding that level, and so that does correspond with this prior consolidation that we've seen here. There being some consolidation below it, acting as support. Did get a fake out break below it here, as well as over here before the big run up, and so I am hoping that $1.70 is acting as support moving forward. One thing that I did add to the chart here is this orange uptrend based on these 2 pivot points. It does look like before the big run up that we had, we did see a fake out break below that uptrend, but currently right now we are testing that, and we really haven't seen much going on below that level. So while we did close right around it on Thursday and Friday, I think that we could be respecting that. We have broken below it on Friday, Thursday, as well as Wednesday, but the closes have been just about at that level. So I do feel like we could be respecting the current price where we're at around $1.73 because we do see this convergence of these levels here. And so I do think that price could be going higher, and I don't think that we will be revisiting $1.60. But, of course, I could be wrong about that. So always good to have a plan if it does continue to the downside. But I do think after this massive retrace, I do think we could be finding our footing before a continuation higher. But one other thing that I should mention before I move on to the next ticker is this gap that I did not highlight in last week's video, so I'm just going to do that now. And so the low hit on April 8th was at a price of $2.54. Got that blue line marked there. So I do think price will eventually be filling that gap, but it might take some time. I have definitely identified gaps in the past that have taken months to fill, so it's good to be patient with this one. But if the stock does find support where it's at and does eventually head back up to fill that gap, that would represent a 46-47% swing to the upside. So even just getting to that gap, just to fill that gap, or more properly to fill that gap based on the close of that day, that does represent a 50% swing to the upside. So I do think there is a lot of potential there, but like I said, it might take months before we get back up there. But anyways, now that I've gone over TLRY, moving on to the next ticker, I'm going to be going over Canopy Growth Corporation, ticker symbol CGC, which has the second largest market cap on this list with a market cap of $722.54 million, closing on Friday at a price of $7.93, being up about 1.28% on the day. This one actually does look pretty encouraging to me, as we did see a bounce off of, multiple levels that I have marked here, one being this downtrend going from the high over here, connecting this high to that one as the two pivot points, and that level does converge with the golden pocket that I have highlighted here, hitting a low on Wednesday, April 17th of $6.09, being just below that 618 level at a price of $6.12, getting a bounce the following day, going up more than 20% on Thursday, April 18th, and now consolidating after an up move. That to me looks like a bull flag. However, one thing to be concerned about with this is we do see these pretty big wicks to the upside, suggesting that there are no buyers, or at least not enough buyers above the price of $8, or where I have it marked here at $7.99. Really, that just being a psychological level, given that it is a whole round even number. Those are oftentimes levels of resistance, people setting sell orders there. However, I do think that this could be a bull flag, and this does make me think that any bearish signs that I was seeing in the MSOS or the MSOX, like that potential head and shoulders pattern, I don't think that is legit. I think that based on this chart, we are seeing some bullish consolidation, a bull flag before a move higher. But if we are not able to get above this level, that is something to be keeping an eye on. And before I move over to the next ticker, I did also want to point out, just doing another Fibonacci retracement, as it does look like we have found a bottom here, just being approximate levels, not drawing them to the exact penny, but it does look like we did get rejected from the 382 at a price of right around $8.18. However, it does look like we are holding above the 236 at a price of $7.35. I did adjust the Fibonacci retracement to be exactly going from the high here to the low here. So 738 is going to be one to keep an eye on. Perhaps, just keeping an eye on $7.40. Don't want to see any closes below that level. And if we are respecting it, I would look for a break above 818 and a close above that to start making our way higher, like to the 50% retracement at $8.83. And looking at the chart here, there was this gap here that was previously filled, but the dip that we saw, the low on April 17th, did fill that gap, or at least better filled it. So I do think that is good that price was able to return to that level, finding support at the 618 and this downtrend to then bounce I do think this suggests a lot of strength for the cannabis sector, so I'm feeling pretty good about this one. And then finally, switching over to SNDL, ticker symbol SNDL, formerly known as Sundial. And so here we can see that Sundial closed at a price of $1.87, being up just over 2% on the day. And I should note that the market cap is $491.97 million. So this being the third largest of the three stocks that I'm going over. And it does look like it returned pretty nicely to that golden pocket. So I am curious to see if price is able to hold above the 618 at a price of $1.82.3. It did briefly break below the 65% level at a price of $1.78, hitting a low on Wednesday of $1.75, but that being a quick break below and actually a close above both of those levels. And we have actually not seen one close below the 618, so that does look like it is serving as support. So that is pretty encouraging. And then I also did want to point out some levels in the past that have served as peaks that might be acting as support moving forward. And so here, we do have these peaks around here that would be dipping to a price of right around $1.70. So maybe there is some further downside there. But this peak here that we hit in August of 2023, that does seem to correspond pretty nicely with that golden pocket. And so hopefully that level, this range, is going to be acting as support, and this can start to move higher. But if it does not, we do have the 786 at a price of $1.59.3. And right around that level, we do have a lot of consolidation just below it. Consolidation over here, as well as consolidation over here. Any of this price action really below that level, below where that cursor is, I do think that is going to be pretty significant support. So if price does break below that 65% level, that is at a price of $1.78. I do think there could be some support right around $1.60. So if price does dip there, I would expect that to be the bottom due to all of this consolidation that you can see here. But I do think that with what we're seeing with CGC, I do think that could suggest that the bottom may be in for cannabis, especially looking at TLRY, this level at $1.70, and this convergence of that level and the uptrend. It does seem like the bottom could be in, and that would also be forming a higher low. That could suggest that we are going to see another rally, potentially making the move, the 50% move up to fill this gap here, right around a price of $2.54. So I would look for some upside in cannabis stocks over the next couple weeks, and that is what I am hoping for, especially on this special day, April 20th. Hopefully you're all enjoying yourselves. And those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks a lot for watching.